Coming up next is a fireside chat between Rapid and TazaPay. We'll be having Joel Yarborough, VP of Asia Pacific, Rapid, and Rahul Shingal, co-founder and CEO of TazaPay, speak on trust and security in digital payments.
So Rahul, welcome, and thanks for coming. Great thrill to have you. I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with you for more than 10 years, and so it's a pleasure to have you here today as part of the Green Shoot series.
Likewise.
So for those who don't know you, I know you to be a payment innovator for a long time, right? Not just in recent history, but going back quite a bit. Can you tell people just a little bit about your background, how you got into payments?
Totally. I've been working in the payment industry in one form or the other for about 22 odd years now. Started my career way back in India in a bank. Then I joined a payment startup, which was a Swedish startup. Was there for about 7 years. Fantastic company. We were innovating on mobile payments. And almost all the mobile wallets in the world, M-Pesa, GCash, Smart Money, were created on that infrastructure. So great foundational years. And then I had the pleasure of joining PayPal. One of the most fantastic working experiences that I had. I was there for 10 years. Joined in 2009 in this very office. Was there for about 10 years. Great experience. Saw the business growing from, when I joined, it was a 20 billion odd company. By the time I left, it was 200 billion. Because I had the pleasure of working with you for a fairly long time there. And then joined Stripe, leading the APAC business. And pretty much was seeing the same story repeat itself. Just that they were growing at twice the rate of what I saw at PayPal in early 2009. And at that point, I said that maybe it's time for me to try and do this myself. And that's why I'm here.
Fair enough. And here being at?
So I've started a company with the two co-founders called TazaPay, which is a company focused on B2B payments, cross-border B2B payments. One big gap which I saw when I was at PayPal and at Stripe was that while there's so much innovation on B2C, B2B still lives about 30 years behind. And transaction sizes of $20,000, $30,000 are still very tribal, very chaotic, and there's really no process, no protections available, like you have protections available on card payments. And so the central thesis of what we are building is a protected payment mechanism for B2B transactions, offering the same level of protection that you would get in a B2C transaction. And very often what we've seen is that small businesses, when they find a new partner, the deal doesn't go through because they're not able to negotiate the terms. The buyer is saying, ship me the item first, then I'll pay you. The seller says, pay me first, then I'll ship. And very often these deals don't go through. And because there's just no trusted mechanism of making these payments, there's no recourse mechanism. So very simply, we are building what we think is the world's first digital escrow system, specially for cross-border trade. So it's very specially tailored for cross-border trade. And the idea is that we'll create the escrow agreement on our platform. And very simply, it'll be digital, completely digital. Usually, if you go to a law firm or a bank to do an escrow agreement, it takes days and days, multiple documents. But we'll do this completely electronically. We'll operationalize it. We'll use Rapid's infrastructure to move the money from any part of the world into Singapore, hold it here. And then when the release conditions are met, which was originally agreed anyway, in the escrow agreement, that's when we will release the money. But so we'll take care of the operations as well of actually verifying that the release event actually happened, verifying the documents itself. So we play the part of a digital escrow agent, if you may. And the whole endeavor is to try to bring B2B transactions into the 21st century.
Very nice, very nice. So if you roll back, marketplaces in general play a very large role in commerce in Asia. Is that for trust reasons, something else? And do you see that as a pattern that's inspired what you're doing at TazaPay?
That's right. You're absolutely right. What we haven't seen is a large marketplace like Alibaba in Southeast Asia and India. Alibaba is very strong in China, but in this part of the world, marketplaces tend to be very vertical specific. So there's a vertical specific marketplace for aluminum trading. There's a marketplace for rice trading. There's very vertical specific marketplaces and then very country specific marketplaces. So none of these marketplaces have reached a lot of scale. And that's also because it's testament to the fragmented nature of our markets in Southeast Asia. That's the first thing. Secondly, what is very clearly evident is a lot of marketplaces tend to be listing sites and discovery sites. and the fulfillment very much happens outside the platform. And I think that's because there have been missing pieces around payments and fulfillment mechanisms. And that's exactly the gap we are trying to bridge along with Rapid.
So how do you create the trust in a marketplace environment, particularly when you're talking about cross-border trade?
That, to be honest, is the most challenging part. And we've seen this precedence in the US and in Europe that if the marketplace can operate like a trusted intermediary with the support of somebody like us, where we could actually hold the money, be very transparent about how the money is bought in, how the money is held, under what conditions it will be released, and be completely transparent about the operation process behind it. I think that is usually we've seen is a great, great trust creator. So that's what we want to be, this real transparent engine which can power not only SMBs directly, but also potentially marketplaces along with a partnership with you.
And so as businesses transact more on TazaPay, does their trust go up? Do I, as a new seller or a new buyer on the platform, do I see that my counterparty has a trust score in some way?
That's right. That's what we're trying to do. That part of the service is already live on our platform on TazaPay, where you can actually do a full verification on your partner even before you do the trade. When we were interviewing literally hundreds of SMBs, their journey starts with trying to get some basic verification on their partner, and it's not easy. They'll essentially do a Google search. They don't know whether it's a legit company. They've got things which are very familiar to us like PEP and adverse media and AML. These things, it's very difficult for them to get a handle on that. So that's what we try and do, give them a full report about their partner, help them establish trust first, that the partner you're doing business with is a legit partner. And so they can get that. And then the second part is using that initial trust creation. We can offer an intermediated payment system to them.
And so how do they transact today in that kind of early stages of that relationship? And how does a first transaction differ from a second or third transaction?
That's a great question. Usually first transaction is the biggest challenge. And today the pattern is that they would spend about 4 to 5 months in getting comfortable with the other party. And this usually involves, in most cases, a visit to the other party's country, which of course nobody has got that luxury anymore.
Nice.
With COVID, they would spend months and months negotiating, trying to find common acquaintances between the two parties. And that's what we've seen. Sometimes people will go to the embassy, try to get some validation. So it's very, very, very tribal and really fairly chaotic as such. And most people we've spoken to, one telling statement of this trader we were talking to said that once I have shipped the items, the only thing I can do is pray to God that I get paid. And so while it's true that platforms like ours would be very useful for the initial trust creation, I think it will become hygiene because people will just want to use it as a discipline, that even if you've got a trusted relationship, you continue using it so that you're at least sleeping at peace at night.
There you go. So you're going to build that trust piece.
That's right.
And then help develop the first invoice?
That's right. Invoice, we looked at that, and usually a lot of these platforms SMBs have very strong invoicing platforms which are pre-integrated with systems. So what we do is our transaction starts by them uploading an invoice on our platform. We automatically read it. And then our main focus is on actually creating a legally binding escrow agreement on our platform, which clearly defines the tenets of the agreement, what's the product, what are the release conditions, what are the dispute processes, dispute resolution process, etc.
So you're replacing the prayer leg of the transaction.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's good. When you think about doing this internationally, what are the barriers to scaling as you add markets?
That's right.
Because obviously you're building your network globally across countries.
Right. We've obviously not got bigger so far. We pre-launched, but I can talk a little bit from my previous vantage point on any of these international markets. The biggest challenge is always the regulatory hurdle. What do you do when you go to a new market? Do the regulations apply to you or not? I think generally for cross-border, with the exception of a few countries, cross-border regulations are not as onerous as domestic regulations. For instance, a lot of data localization regulations are not applicable for cross-border. So we would operate under that premise that Singapore is our international headquarter and we offer services from Singapore in partnership with Rapid. The other sort of challenge is, especially in Southeast Asia, is language localization. And I cannot stress this enough. I saw this at PayPal. There's a general perception, okay, these merchants are well educated, they're doing cross-border business. It just makes such a magnitude of difference if you can localize the experience for them. Not only in terms of helping them discover the service, because they're not going to Google and search. They're not searching in English, they're searching in local language. So that's going to be a big thing for us, making sure we localize. Another third thing which us and most companies in Southeast Asia can do, and especially if your vision is about connecting Southeast Asia with the rest of the world, is it has to become a little more high touch. And some sort of a concierge service which allows you to connect buyers and sellers, do things like language translation, codifying the agreements which are in two different languages into a mutually acceptable language like English. So a lot of these things have to be taken care of, which is really not top of mind when you're operating a payment service.
Right. So given that we've had a pretty challenging year, right? As you said, the business is in the pre-launch phase. How has the COVID process been for you and your team?
No, it's a great question. We started our journey sometime in April this year, which was when the COVID pandemic was full blown, and the world was clearly seeing how dangerous and disruptive this is going to be. And we really started it wasn't planned to be that way. I had been planning this for the last 6 months, and I had already quit my job in Feb. And so pretty much, we didn't think that because there's a pandemic, we'll do it. But if we had decided to do it, if the pandemic came, obviously, we were very worried initially that what will be the impact on the world economy. But I was very encouraged on speaking to literally dozens and dozens of customers that cross-border business had not been impacted that much, especially in certain categories. The non-discretionary items, there wasn't much of an impact. In fact, the requirement for trust creation has become even more pronounced, because there was always this ability for a Thai merchant to travel down to Singapore and meet their counterparty and get some level of comfort. That pretty much is gone, I think, for the next 1.5 years. So we feel that it creates a unique opportunity as well as an obligation for us to try and fix this trust deficit.
That makes total sense to me. How about building the team? How have you been able to attract people to the team? How did you start to work together for the first time in some cases?
I had the great fortune of getting two co-founders, Arul and Saroj, both of whom I've known for many years. Arul was your colleague at Grab, and he was my customer there, both at PayPal and Stripe. So I had tremendous respect for his technical skills, and Saroj and me were friends. So three of us started off. It didn't require them a lot of convincing to get them on board. Getting the initial 2-3 people was quite challenging to try and sell them the vision. And we were very clear, we just don't want to get people who are just doing it as a job. People needed to buy into the mission that we're really solving a problem here, people who were motivated by the problem. So initially then we were lucky to get Lakshmi, a product manager who would work with us at PayPal. And then once we had got 3-4, it's been quite easy. I'm very proud of the engineering team that we've built in Chennai. Arul's done a fantastic job there. It's a great team. But I think hiring is typically the biggest challenge for any entrepreneur trying to sell the vision. We've also had the good fortune of having partners like Rapid and investors like Sequoia and Saison, which add to the credibility quite a bit. So thank you for your support.
Jay, thank you for your support. Just digging into that a little bit, are there things that maybe tell the team, tell the universe, how is Rapid working with HowToPay? How are we helping you out?
So I had a fair amount of background in payments, and we had a pretty clear idea of what we required from a payment partner. Somebody who can help us bring in money, disperse the money, manage payment methods. And Rapid clearly stood out, and not because I'm in the Rapid office, but clearly stood out for a few reasons. First of all, I think it's in a bit of Rapid's DNA to work with entrepreneurs and startups. So that was fantastic. Your team was genuinely excited to work with use cases like us. Secondly, your infrastructure around being able to create these underlying subordinate accounts, fully integrated with KYC, AML processes. I think it's a very well thought through product of serving platforms like us. It felt almost, when I was reading the API document, this was like built to order for a use case like us. So that was great. And then the extensive network that you have around the world of being able to allow merchants anywhere in the world to pay virtually into a virtual account as a local transfer and avoid these high FX costs and high wire transfer costs. I think all of those fit us quite beautifully. I felt Rapid was also very thoughtful in the way they've structured their regulatory arrangement. It's completely, of course, 100% kosher, but also gives flexibility to expand to new markets very quickly. So we felt, that's why it was a great partner for us. And it's been a great journey so far.
And it's been very exciting for us. And you're right. I think, you and I have been in this particular business long enough to realize that B2B is one of the great unsolved problems.
That's right.
And such an enormous category. And at the same time, despite things like bank transfers being electronic, they're still effectively manual, right?
That's right.
A sequence of manual steps that are time-consuming, burdensome. And I think we've all been waiting a long time to really make that process better. So it's actually quite exciting to see you really take the trust problem by the horns and try to address that problem. I think, ironically, the timing works out well for the reason that you said.
That's right.
If no one can travel and no one can build trust face-to-face, how do you build trust digitally?
That's right.
So with that in mind, so hopefully, right, now that we have, I think, 3 vaccine candidates looking promising, et cetera, as we start to come out of COVID a little bit, what, if anything, do you think is going to stay the same, right? Versus differ, having gone through this experience as a society and as a fintech community?
I hope things which will not go back are this whole concept of digitization. Especially for cross-border trade and for B2B, the documentation is so onerous and almost in the 19th century. For a typical trade, there are 30 documents which have to be physically created, signed, sealed, no digital signatures. Some markets like Vietnam insist on a CHOP as well. And I think COVID has accelerated that, and pretty much that is all gone. It's all gone. Digital documents are accepted everywhere. Electronic copies are accepted anywhere. There was a time where for a cross-border trade, your bill of lading had to be physically couriered. So that's kind of gone. And I think people have got comfortable with it and it's not going to go back. And that augurs really well for us, because then we can build on that and create a real stellar experience for our merchants. That will go away. I think travel will come back. There's a lot of people feel that people will stop.
Very much.
Yeah, very much. I think, I don't think this notion that now that people have got comfortable doing business remotely, they'll continue that way. And I think that's good. That's great, not only for the travel industry, but our business as well, because that's how discovery happens. That's how people meet new buyers and sellers. That's happened. I personally am really looking forward to travel again. It's been, like you, probably 1 year since we've got on a plane, the longest time. So really looking forward to that.
In the spirit of green shoots, when you look at how the rest of the community has gotten through this crisis, are there businesses that you look at and say, wow, that's exciting that somebody was able to innovate in this period of time?
I think one of my previous employers, Stripe, did a pretty good job. They, from the very beginning, had this concept of a programmable API. And, to me, they always are a bit of a benchmark and a role model in terms of how to do tech development and product management. And it's from the very beginning, it's been self-service, and even more so pronounced now. So I think that, and how they innovated even further during this crisis was quite admirable to me. Apart from that, I think what is even more admirable beyond the payment companies is how smaller businesses have taken up digital payments and e-commerce in general. Businesses who were on the verge of shutting down have set up Shopify stores, started collecting payments online, and that has happened at such a rapid pace, as evident by the growth you've seen in the Shopify stock and the payment stocks.
So with that said, thank you for coming by. You're very, very welcome. Anytime to your third home here.
That's cute.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you.
Lovely.